Well, for the fourth straight week, we're talking about a Northwestern loss. But this one I think you can be a little bit more proud of.
You are Locked On Northwestern, your daily podcast on the Northwestern Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. This is Locked On Northwestern, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Carter Bird, and thank you for making Locked On Northwestern your first listen every day. We're available wherever you get podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever we are available. We're also available on YouTube. Just search Locked On Northwestern. You can find us. Make sure you subscribe, turn on notifications so you don't miss any episodes that come out because they come out each weekday. And yeah, turn on notifications. Leave a comment, leave a review, and we would love to get your feedback. We'd love to improve the show however we can. And yeah, I'd like to thank LinkedIn Jobs for being the official college football recruiting sponsor across the Locked On College Network. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnCollege. Terms and conditions apply. All right. Well, let's get into this a little bit because Northwestern goes on the road to Happy Valley to Penn State and they lose 17-7. Well, I think you can be happy with the fight. I thought the team fought very, very hard in extremely bad weather, pouring rain. At times it looked like it let up, but most of the game it just looked miserable to play in. Late in the game, Helinski tried to make a play with his legs, slid into the sidelines, and he came back. It's like he went and rolled around in like a pig pen, which wasn't ideal for the next play when I think he had to make a throw on. I want to say it may have been the third or fourth and long. This game turned into the definition of just a turnover frenzy. It just felt like neither team could hang on to the football in a game like this. You saw 5 turnovers for Penn State. You saw 3 for Northwestern, and we'll talk more about that as we go. But it was certainly seemed difficult to keep your hands on the ball in this one. Balls were rolling around the ground all the time. It felt like, and I thought neither team, as a result of the weather and the conditions, that played a role in those turnovers. But then that also, I think that played a role in neither team was particularly effective passing the ball. Northwestern was much later. And that brings me to my next point. I thought Northwestern was extremely conservative and passive almost to start the game. I thought they called the game on offense like they expected it to be a 7-6 final score. And then when the urgency finally kicked on and they started moving the ball, it was kind of too little too late. But it was a Herculean by that Northwestern defense to keep Northwestern in the game. They were on the field a whole lot. They held up. They contained the run game pretty well. They definitely contained Clifford. We've seen him have much better games this season than what he had on Saturday. But and then you saw the turnovers forced on offense. You just couldn't really run the ball. You got a little too predictable with that at certain points. But you did play a clean football game. Just 2 penalties, 10 yards. The jerseys may not have been clean, particularly Helinski's there at the end, but as far as the procedural things, it was a clean game for Northwestern. Those are my initial takeaways here, but in just a second, we're going to take a much deeper dive into the offense because offense is probably going to be the majority of the time today. We will talk about the defense in the final segment, but I just think the offense is a more interesting side of the ball to talk about in a game where you only get 7 points, and you do get stuffed later. But I do think that that's going to be an interesting thing to talk about. But first, let's talk about our friends at LinkedIn. These days, every new to hire can feel like a high stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Look, LinkedIn Jobs is something that I use I've used in my past to get various roles kind of in the sports media field. It's how I ended up where I'm at right now with the radio station that I work with, along with what I do with Locked On. And I mean, it's a great tool. It helps connect you to people who can help you along the way as you try to pursue your career. And then for anybody who's hiring, it's a very, very easy tool to get the word out there. I mean, you just post your job and you add your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on the candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to hire and interview. And yeah, I mean, I think that it's as we progress into the fall, it's that much more vital to make sure that you have the right people on your team. You add the right team members to allow you to finish the year strong and to help your business grow. But LinkedIn Jobs, I mean, it's why businesses rank LinkedIn Jobs number one in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, here we go. We're going to talk about this Northwestern offense. And you got to start with kind of the point that I made earlier. This was maybe the most conservative game, the start to a game plan what I've ever seen out of any team. Your first 8 plays on offense were all runs. 7 of them were runs up the middle. And it felt like like Penn State was ready for it. I mean, you open the game with 10 of your first 12 offensive plays or runs. It was a tough start as a result. I mean, it looked like Penn State was prepared for that in the weather. You saw 4 3-and-outs and an interception on one of those first couple pass attempts. But yeah, that made up the entirety of the first 5 drives was 4 3-and-outs and an interception. Not the start you want. Just 13 yards in the first quarter, 65 yards in the second quarter. Better, but still, you can't go to half with just 78 total yards. You mean you were 0.9 yards per play in the first quarter, and you went to half with just about 2.5 yards per play. I mean, it was not good enough. 3 first half turnovers. It's kind of the story of the game for that slow start. You not only were you too predictable and Penn State was ready for it, all you did was run the football. I mean, you ran the football a ton. When you did throw it, Helinski, I believe he started 0 for 5 with an interception. Not the start you want there. You turn the ball over, you put the ball on the ground, 3 turnovers, and you found yourself down. I believe you were down what? You were down I think 14-0 at half, if I recall. Yeah, you're down 14-0 at half. I'd had to double check that one. But yeah, I mean, so you go to half and it's a little bit demoralizing, but in the same token, the defense is playing well enough to keep you in the game. We'll talk about the defense in a second. Well, you showed some signs of life in that second half. 5 of 6 explosive pass plays were in the second half, including a 47-yard touchdown pass to Jacob Gill, which is huge. Got you kind of was an injection of life into the team. You couldn't run the ball at all in the second half, though, like at all. And I think you realized that pretty quickly. There were 8 rushes for -9 yards. Generally, that's pretty tough. It's not going to win a lot of games. It's not gonna give you any balance when you run for negative yards in a half of football. Ryan Helinski was 15 of 37 in the game for a 41% completion percentage, 210 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, had a 91.7 passer rating and a 28.1 QBR according to ESPN. 5.68 yards per attempt, not exactly because of the inefficiency completing balls. Those numbers don't really jump off the page. But then at the next stat, 14 yards per completion. That's one of the higher numbers he's put up all year. It might be the highest. First half, 3 of 11, 38 yards, 0 touchdowns, 1 pick, 3.45 yards per attempt, 12.67 yards per completion. Second half came to life a little bit. Completion percentage is still bad, but chalk it up to the weather. 12 of 26, 172 yards, 1 touchdown, 0 picks, 6.62 yards per attempt. So over 3 yards better there, and a 14.33 yards per completion. So you're 1.5, 1 2/3 yards better there. And you saw the explosive plays start to appear. He had a stretch there coming out of half where he was 9 of 13 for 136 yards and a touchdown. And personally, I think he may have scored on the QB sneak. Thought it was a little premature to call him down and not look at it maybe a little harder. I thought he may have been on somebody else's body as he kind of rolled towards the end zone. But, in bad weather, I thought Northwestern did a decent job with its limited amount of completions to kind of spread the ball around. Jacob Gill had his 47-yard touchdown reception. You had 3 receptions for 32 yards for Evan Hull. You had 3 receptions for 34 yards for Marshall Lang. 4 receptions, 42 yards for Malik Washington. And then your leading receiver on the day, Donnie Navarro, 4 receptions, 55 yards. I think Donnie Navarro, what we're starting to see is he's becoming an increasingly important part of the offense. Same with Marshall Lang. Thomas Gordon didn't get any receptions in this one, but those two at the tight end position are key, especially when you can't run the football. And Northwestern could not here on Saturday. Evan Hull, 11 rushes, 45 yards, 4.1 yards per carry. You also had Cam Porter, who had 7 rushes for -5 yards. I mean, that's not, you're not going to get a lot of progress with that. And then you had Anthony Tyus, two rushes for 6 yards. Just really couldn't get much going on the ground at all. You were just 1.1 yards per rush when you add in Malik Washington's 1 rush for 0 yards and Helinski's 6 rushes for -10 yards. Which, of course, I thought he had a nice little decently long run, but no, that was Evan Hull. Apologies. I think I read it wrong. It was a tough day for the offensive line when you look at it. you didn't run well at all. Just that 1.1 yards per rush, which is just not going to get it done for you. It's not going to get it done for you at all. And you graded out pretty poorly. All 5 offensive linemen graded below a 65 on Pro Football Focus, which is, I think, the only time that's happened all year, because you've generally had your anchor. You've had Peter Skoronski grade out extremely, extremely high. Did not today. Ethan Wiedeker led the way with a 63.1 grade. He had a 69.9 pass block grade and a 57.6 run block grade. Josh Preeb was next, 59.9 grade, 50.7 pass block grade, and a 60.6 run block grade. Skoronski was next, 56.3, 76.2 pass block grade, the best of the group, but just a 45.5 run block grade, by far his worst of the year in that category. Then you had Charlie Schmidt, 54.8 Pro Football Focus grade, 70.3 pass block grade, solid, second best pass block grade. You also had Wiedeker up there relatively close to him. Pass block grades for 3 of the guys were not that bad at all, but just a 50.3 run block grade for him. And finally, Vincent Picazzi is your lowest graded offensive lineman at a 52.1 overall grade, 52.3 in the run block, but 38.5 in the pass block grade. Just all around kind of a tough day going against a Manny Diaz defense that brings a lot of pressure. It's not afraid to heat up opposing teams, opposing quarterbacks, try to put as much pressure on the offensive line as possible. Kind of in the weather, I just don't think the Northwestern offensive line, I think they would tell you they didn't quite have the day that they would want in especially on the road against a top team like Penn State. You would want them to perform at maybe a little bit higher of a level. But all in all, I just thought that Northwestern started too predictable on offense, ran the ball up the middle a ton early, didn't make things easy on Helinski out the gate, really slow start. And by the time the sense of urgency kicked in, it was too little too late. I thought Penn State was very much just stacking the box, daring Ryan Helinski in the rain to beat them with his arm. I wouldn't say that he beat him in the second half with his arm, but I think he did enough to bring Northwestern back in the game. He had a couple big plays. Obviously, had the Jacob Gill touchdown. I think if Northwestern could have this back, same situation, I think they would come out a little bit more aggressive out the gate. Maybe wouldn't wait as long, kind of running the football to no avail, because you don't want to fall under the definition of insanity there, which is doing the same thing over and over and over and expecting a different result. That's kind of what it felt like out the gate, and not much happened. But yeah, I just think that if Northwestern had a do-over, they would try to push the ball in the air a little bit more, a little quicker, make it easier on Helinski, and not be as predictable out of the gate. But yeah, that's my thoughts on the offense. We'll talk about the defense here in a second. But first, let's talk about our friends at BetOnline. BetOnline is your number one source for all your football betting info this season. Find all of the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcast, and in-depth articles and analysis on every game you can find. And as always, BetOnline remains your continued source for all your sports wagering information with live betting and up-to-the-minute scores for every sport out there. The fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite games and events, including MLB, MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to betonline.ag today or use your mobile device to learn more. Bet online, where the game starts. All right. Let's talk about the defense. I thought this group played its butts off. I think they were aided by the weather, but everybody had to play in it. So I thought they played extremely well. I thought that they made it tough on Sean Clifford, who was just 10 of 20, 140 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. It's about all you can ask from a Northwestern defense that, to be frank about it, is outmatched talent-wise. They held a run game in check to an extent. 58 carries, 210 yards, I believe. 220 yards, I believe, actually. 3.8 yards per carry. Look, this is a team that was running the ball like crazy. The running backs were ripping off huge runs. Singleton was averaging 9 yards per carry coming in. Katron Allen was averaging 6 yards per carry coming in. Well, Singleton was 21 for 87 with a touchdown, 4.1 yards per carry. His backfield mate, Katron Allen, 21 carries, 86 yards. Also, 4.1 yards per carry, and you forced 5 turnovers. You had 1 interception by Bryce Gallagher, which was a great, great catch. Getting his hands under the ball, securing it in the rain, not letting the nose of the football touch the ground or anything. It was a really, really, really good catch by him. You had the fumbles. They were forced by Rod Hurd. Garnett Hollis got 2 of them. And then you had Bryce Gallagher again. He forced a fumble. And then they were recovered by Cam Mitchell, Grayson Metz, Jeremiah Lewis, and Xander Mueller. So you go out there and you force 5 turnovers. You're +2 in the turnover battle, which you haven't won the turnover battle in a while. And because of that, you're able to keep your team in the game. You're able to not let this Penn State team get so far out front that your struggling offense doesn't have time to figure it out, start moving the ball, start putting up points. They ended up putting up a touchdown, almost put up another one. Would have been interesting to see what type of life would have been in that defense late. Had Northwestern gotten some more points on the board. You had 5 tackles for a loss. Your people with 1 full tackle for a loss: Cam Mitchell, Rod Hurd, and Devin O'Rourke. Half a tackle for a loss is to go for half a tackle for loss for guys like Xander Mueller, Bryce Gallagher, Adetomiwa Adebare, and Sean McLaughlin. He didn't get any sacks, but then again, he only dropped back. Sean Clifford did 20 times and completed 10 of them. And then the other, you only had 10 opportunities to get a sack. You did get 3 quarterback hurries. Cam Mitchell had 1. Jalen Pate had 1. Aiden Hubbard had 1. 2 pass breakups by Jeremiah Lewis and Xander Mueller. But my biggest takeaway from this defense was on the road, hostile environment, first true road test. You look to rely on your leaders. And I thought the leaders stepped up. Xander Mueller, 14 tackles, led the team, half a tackle for a loss, a pass breakup, and a fumble recovery. Bryce Gallagher, 12 tackles, half a tackle for a loss, 1 interception, 1 forced fumble. Cam Mitchell, 11 tackles, 1 tackle for a loss, 1 quarterback hurry, and 8 fumble recovery. Those are 3 of what? If you looked around, those are generally, people would tell you those are 3 of what, 4 or 5 leaders of this defense. And I thought they did a nice job leading the way for the rest of that defense on Saturday. I was encouraged by it. You didn't get the win, but I thought this Northwestern defense showed us something that we hadn't seen in these bigger games. We hadn't seen in the last few weeks. They showed a level of fight, a level of effort, an ability to kind of just figure out a way to keep your team in the game against a good team that we probably haven't seen as consistently. And I was encouraged. I was very much impressed. I'm pretty happy with the performance by the Northwestern defense. And I think it's something to build off going into the future. I know you've lost 4 straight, but the defense has been more of the Achilles heel this year, and they just went out and put forth arguably their best performance of the year, and that's something to build on, especially when you look forward. I mean, you're taking on a team that just fired their head coach on Sunday. I mean, could be fun this week. I think that at least things have swung a little bit more likely in your favor looking forward. But we will talk about that later in the week as we will continue to talk about this game, continue to talk about this Northwestern football team and their upcoming game against Wisconsin. And yeah, I mean that's kind of going to be the plan for the week. But for now, I think that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you for joining us for Locked On Northwestern. I'm your host, Carter Bird. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at CarterBird13. You can look us up on YouTube at Locked On Northwestern. You can find us wherever you get podcasts. We just want to thank you for making Locked On Northwestern your first listen for anything and everything Northwestern. Look us up wherever you listen to podcasts. Look us up on YouTube. Subscribe, notifications, comments, reviews, all that stuff helps us. It helps us make the show better. And yeah, I think that's probably going to do it for today. Wait, actually, don't want to get out of here without giving you, especially with all the stuff going on in the Big Ten right now. I mean, Wisconsin just fired a coach. You need to know what your team's up against across the Big Ten with Locked On Big Ten. Everyday host Nate Dickinson and the local experts of Locked On take you across the Big Ten in 30 minutes. Make Locked On Big Ten your second listen behind Locked On Northwestern, Locked On Big Ten. All right, well, that's going to do it for today. We'll see you back tomorrow. We'll probably have some sort of deeper dive into this game and maybe some position groups, and then we'll start to dig into that Wisconsin matchup coming up. But I'll see you all next time.